Time now to get the latest trends in dive retailing, travel, and training with Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Now, here's your host, Scuba Radio's Greg the Dive Master.
That is me. Happy holidays to you. Hopefully you're making the best of the Christmas shopping season and giving the gift of scuba. That's what we've been focused on Scuba Radio every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern. You can check it out and join the party. However, today it's time for another edition of Level Up, the podcast for Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. The man behind the madness, Willie Klein. With us.
Hello. Thank you, Greg. And I also got to do a quick commercial.
Yeah.
You have the coolest hats I've ever seen. Make America Dive Again.
That's right. Yeah.
It's merch available on your website. It's very cool takeoff. I like those hats.
Well, that's one way to give the gift of
Not
scuba.
a political statement.
No, not at all. It's a campaign that no matter where you fall in the political spectrum, you can get behind a campaign to make America dive again.
Absolutely.
They should say
Very
make
cool.
the world dive again. And I know the dive god Neil Watson would agree with me on that. He's with us too. Neil, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, my friend. Yeah, I'm waiting for my hat in the mail. I haven't got it yet.
Well, all you have to do is order it at ScubaRadio.com on the merch page. Because I have none.
No discount.
I wish. I
He's
wish there
still
was.
waiting for the corporate jet invitation,
Hey,
editor at large.
Yeah. We're cheap. We run on a shoestring here at Scuba Radio. And, the good news is the prices have not been inflated. We just throw it up there, and people want to buy it. They buy it. They get it at cost.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's worth every penny.
That's right.
It's very cool.
There you go. So, we're on the heels of the DEMA show in Las Vegas, which, from my perspective, was wildly successful and good to see everybody. As doing Scuba Radio for 27 years, it's like a family reunion with pretty much everybody who's on the Level Up podcast today. I think feels the same way. However, it was really good to see all the economic activity. I think it was percolating a little bit in the positive this year compared to last year. What do you think, Willie?
The attendance was off just a little bit. We're talking like less than a few percentage points from New Orleans, which was a heavily attended show, probably the biggest since COVID. But, the DEMA show is one of those shows that you get out of it what you put into it. And Jeff has done a great job of writing about this, Jeff C, not Jeff B, about preparing and being ready for the DEMA show. And in fact, I wrote an article back, I want to say it was in February or March, and it was like, why plan for DEMA show now 200 days out? You really do get a lot more out of the show if you plan for it. You send emails to your customers. You start creating your specials very, very early. Explore Ventures does a great job of this. Aggressor does a great job of this, of getting their specials out in sometimes June and July. That's what I mean by you get out of it what you put into it. And so I think, in general, the show is fantastic. It's 4 days of exhaustion, but it's so worth it. If you've never gone to the DEMA show and you're a dive professional listening to this, plan to come to Orlando in 2025. It'll change your life, at least from a diving perspective, because you really get a chance to see that it's a room full of 5,000 passionate people over the course of 4 days that just want to make diving better. We may not know how to go about it, but we all really kind of have the same general goal.
Right. Here's a little show trek for DEMA next year. And this is kind of one of those things under the radar that a lot of people don't take advantage of, but I do every year. And I'm going to share it. And that is because your feet are going to hurt, especially just after one day of walking 7-8 miles. That's what happens when you're working a DEMA show. You hit that massage chair in the afternoon for a little afternoon pick-me-up and sit in it for 15 minutes. And they give you a whole demo. Just don't buy one. I mean, if you want to buy one, buy one. God forbid. But, just act just interested enough, and they will hook you up. And it's like, having an hour nap to kind of give you a second wind.
That's a good idea. We should put that in our booth next year, Patty.
Yes, I'm telling you. That's how I manage. So now the rest of the world knows.
But I sat in it the whole time, and no one would get a chance. So
there's
that.
They may kick you out if you don't buy one, and I don't know. I mean, but they're usually pretty generous if you want to sit in one of these things for 15 minutes. And I'm telling you what, that's a godsend, and it helps you get through the show. So there's a little inside tip. For next year's DEMA show, which will be in Orlando, my hometown, which I'm looking forward to that. And then we're back to, is it Vegas or are we back to New Orleans after that?
We're going to New Orleans.
New Orleans. Okay. All right. So there you plan accordingly.
So Neil, maybe you could plan now for Orlando next year.
Yeah.
To resurrect Trade Show Man.
Oh, right.
Trade show man has to have some surgery, but he'll be ready for the next DEMA show.
All right. Well, for those folks who don't know what we're talking about, back in the day, the dive god Neil Watson, he used to have an assistant to help him work his booth for his Bimini dive operation, right, Neil? And this
Yeah.
was a
Well,
this was like an
everybody
inflatable
used-
doll, or what
everybody-
was it?
Everybody used to complain that I was never in my booth. So
Mhm.
I'm flying back from a trade show, and I'm looking in that catalog, where you could buy everything that you don't need but have to have. And I saw this inflatable dummy that you put in your car for the HOV lanes, and I figured I got to have that. So I ordered it, forgot about it, and about 3 weeks later, this box came. I opened it, and there's head in there, and I'm like freaking out. And then I realized I had got this thing. So I named him Trade Show Man. So I started bringing him to the shows, and he had his own suitcase, his own clothes, apparel.
Yeah.
And I take him out drinking. He was a chick man, that Trade Show Man. But at Ocean Fest, I came down one morning to my booth, and Trade Show Man had a spilt beer. His arm was torn off. I don't know what he had done that night, but I put him in the box, and he's been in there waiting for surgery. But I'm going to have him resurrected for DEMA.
All right.
Didn't you go over the side of a hotel in Denver?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were in. No, I think it was Houston.
Yeah,
we're in I think the Embassy Suites, and Trade Show Man was despondent, and I went with Trade Show Man up to the top floor, and they got like the atrium, and the guys playing the piano and everything, and suddenly Trade Show Man, I got him by the arms. He's hanging over the side, and I'm screaming, "No Trade Show Man! No Trade Show Man!
Don't jump!"
People are looking up, they're diving under furniture and stuff. Well, the biggest security guy I'd ever seen just lifted me and Trade Show Man about 5 feet off of the ground.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the evening for me and Trade Show
You were
Man.
arrested that evening. Is that right, Neil?
Pardon?
You were arrested that night? Is that what happened? Or
Well, kind of.
okay.
That's a different night, different hotel, and different story.
Yes, right. Exactly. But
So,
see, that's the fun
DEMA
divers have.
DEMA is fun too. I mean, that's the thing. It is a great time because you're hanging out with all these people that you really like and people that you don't know, but you get to know them, and it's a great experience. It's a fun experience too, and it doesn't have to be all super professional. It is, but we all have a lot of fun at that show.
Yeah, you take care of business during the day, and you head out to the bar at night, and then get the real business done. I mean, that's kind of how it works. I mean, and I'll tell you, this year's show at the Westgate Hotel there at the bar, man, there was a lot of activity going on. And that's why I said overall, I mean, maybe attendance was slightly off a little bit, like you said, Willie. I don't know. I couldn't really tell in that regard. But I will say the activity as far as, networking and meeting new people and stuff. I mean, I was really encouraged by what I saw and encountered.
Yeah.
Greg, I want to say that one of the main reasons I go to the DEMA show every year is exactly for what you just said. It's the networking stuff.
Absolutely.
It's great to see the new stuff that comes on into the shops or what's available in terms of new product. But even more importantly to me is the opportunity to meet new people, to reacquaint myself with people, to continue to build the relationships I built over the years.
Absolutely.
For me, a highlight this year was being presented the Nogi Award at the Nogi
congratulations
dinner.
there.
Yeah.
But even if you're not getting an award, the show is full of social events. The Patty Party, the Nogi Party, the TDI, SDI Party.
Dan Party.
Underwater, Our World Underwater Scholarship Party. And those are great places to meet the movers and the shakers in the industry and to build relationships that can ultimately help your business. So if you've never been to a DEMA or you've only gone to DEMA to see the exhibits and step on the show floor, stretch yourself a little bit, go out and start going to some of these social affairs, the Dan Party, because you can meet people that will definitely help your business, whether you're a store owner, a resort owner, or an independent instructor.
And we have a tendency to let our hair down. You really get to, and what little I have, and that kind of thing, and really get to connect with folks. And one of the other things I'll say too is that this year I had a lot of younger folks coming up to me and asking questions. That was that was good to see. I mean,
Patty's going to tell a story a little later on about a couple that we ran into at the booth. They're really quite amazing. Catherine, you had something you want to say?
What do you think?
Yeah, this was my first year as a DEMA featured speaker, and one of the things that was very exciting about that was better than 50% of the attendees to my sessions were first time DEMA attendees,
Mhm.
and there to really take advantage of all the classes and sessions and take notes and do the networking. And the other thing that was really exciting about that is the majority of them were under age 50, which is like a little sprig of hope for the newcomers that are coming into the industry. So that made me feel really excited about what comes next.
I agree totally. And being that,
Thank you.
Catherine has the floor, we ought to lead off with her, don't you think, Willie?
I think it's a perfect segue to go to the Azores.
Yeah. So,
Oh, actually, wait just a minute because I'm reporting live from the Philippines.
Oh
okay.
my gosh.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa, you win.
World
That's the furthest.
trendsetter there. I mean, or world
Yeah.
traveler, a little bit of both, actually. Catherine
Well, I was
Castle.
gonna
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, so you wrote for Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. What is the article that you're going to talk about today there, Catherine?
This is a topic that is very dear to my heart called the audience of one, how to find your ideal customer and grow your business one customer at a time. And the thesis here is if your pitch, your sales and marketing campaign, the way you do business is relevant to one person, it's repeatable. And a lot of times we forget and we try to be everything to everyone all the time. And that's like adding way too much water to the soup. And what you get is something that's just thin and weak and not very fulfilling. So it's really about concentrating and condensing your business message so that you can reach one person and really get into their hearts and minds and then repeat that again and again and again.
I
Make
think that's
sense?
it makes total sense to
Very
me.
cool.
I mean, and I'll tell you, as host of Scuba Radio for 27 years, one of the things you learn early on doing radio, a lot of people think, oh, we reach thousands of people every week, blah 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 blah. But really, if you're doing it right, you're talking to one person every time. It's all about that
Yes.
relationship, because people are
Yeah.
listening on their radio, listening on their phone, and it's no different from what you're saying. When have a sales message that you're trying to reach that customer, you want to make it sound like you're speaking just to that one person, and that's what connects, right?
Exactly. That was the whole reason I was at DEMA with a session called Connect, Profit, Repeat. And whether you're doing it as a person walks into your dive center or you're doing it in a print ad or on the socials, it's really about targeting to that one person. And every single person that's going to interact with your business needs a question answered. And it's the same question for everybody. How will your product or service benefit me? How will it change my life for the better? But they
And,
don't want
and,
to
and
hear about how long you've been in business or how great you are. The customer wants to know, what are you going to do for me that makes my life better? And what do I have to do to get that from you? And
and
that's
that
the whole game.
and that's what we heard time and time and time again at our booth. Retailers, and Patty's going to talk a little more about this later. They'd come by and just say thank you. You're literally, we try to make everybody in our dive shop read this magazine. It's so perfect, the content, and it's not me. It's all, in fact, the editorial this month is not me. It's you. It's our writers, and you hit it right on the head. Very much, very well said.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you. Well, I want to
always.
share one of my favorite photos from
Oh
this
yeah.
this session at DEMA was hanging out with you guys at the Scuba Diving Industry Magazine booth.
Oh well,
So
thank
I
you.
Gil has a
um,
question, I believe. Gil,
and I'd
Yeah,
also like to invite listeners and readers. Oh, go ahead, Gil.
well,
no, I
yeah,
was going to say that when Greg says
And he's muted.
he's talking to an audience of one and you're talking to an audience of one, it's like having a conversation.
right.
And in all good writing and all good presenting, you want to say you. You want to
Mhm.
focus on that person in the audience who you want to connect with,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
a one-to-one
and
level.
and it's also all about the feels. You're going to feel so great when you
Right.
put on this wetsuit or breathe from this regulator. And you're going to experience all this happy joy when you finish your certification course. And we're going to carry you into the next set of feels, which is the adventure and the excitement and the feeling of family.
Right.
So
Now,
connect, profit, repeat is why we're in this business.
now
And we got to
you were
keep making
gonna
those connections.
you were starting to invite us to something. I think it sounded like a holiday party invitation. Did I
Yeah, to the
misread that,
Philippines, maybe.
Catherine?
Well,
In the
I wouldn't
Philippines or
invite
where?
you all to the Philippines because I'm at Atlantis, Philippines. And, the people that contribute to Scuba Diving Industry Magazine are out here in the trenches doing the hard work for you. We're checking out these resorts and we're making certain that everything is how it ought to be for the Scuba Diving Industry Magazine readership and podcast listeners. So
Nice.
There-
So
you're
that's what
welcome.
you're
Wait,
wait,
you're
you're
aren't
Early
you a
this
quality?
morning.
you're at
You're a
that resort.
quality control editor, as I recall.
Exactly.
There you go. That's my new title. I'm sticking to that.
Yeah.
But I'm also happy to be. I launched a new business at DEMA called ClearStoryCoach.com, and it's all about branding and marketing and helping not only business owners but also just individuals connect their message to who needs to hear it. And I have a really good offer on ClearStoryCoach.com. If you go to the website and click on a free download, it'll get you started on niching down to that audience of one so that you can find your ideal customer, win their heart, and get them to open their wallet and give you their money.
There you
Go,
go.
click, rinse, repeat. Exactly.
That's right.
You'll make them happy, and your wallet will be happy too. That's the goal.
There
Make
you
it a
go.
win-win.
Thank you, Catherine.
All right. Yay,
Good
team.
stuff. Next up, Alex Sprilsky, the man, the myth, the legend. And he's got a whole cool presentation for us today about a soft coral, a soft coral invasion. So what and where is this happening, Alex? What can you tell us? Yeah.
My article is really an announcement more than anything else. And this is something that's gone under the radar for some time. When we think of invasive species, of course, in our neck of the woods, we tend to think almost exclusively of lionfishes. And it's interesting that there have been many exotic species that have invaded the Caribbean, about 20 different species of Indo-Pacific fish. Orange cup coral, by the way, is a Pacific invader. But this one, because it was only really present off of Venezuela, has really, as I said, swum under the radar. It involves something called pulse corals. And I'm going to attempt here to show the video
All right.
and to kind of show you what I'm talking about rather than merely talk about it. So Unioma, this is one of the pulse corals. These are popular in the aquarium trade. And Xenia, these two species are the culprits. Now, these are endemic, or not endemic, but species that are common to the Caribbean. This is Erythropodium. And the reason it's called pulse coral, as you can kind of see, these are encrusting gorgonians. And what they do essentially is they cover over the substrate, precluding the settlement of coral larvae, and hence really can be quite problematic. And as I said, this is going to cycle through as I'm speaking. When we get to that little map in a second, you'll see the issue, and that is that these two species have been documented in both Cuba and in Puerto Rico, and there are unconfirmed reports as well in Bonaire. It's of such concern that the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has requested divers to kind of keep a lookout and to report that any sightings, because Cuba being so close to Florida, and the current patterns are such that what is in Cuba eventually makes its way to Florida. It could be an issue for the coral reefs of Florida itself. So the QR code at the end of the article provides a number of resources, much more in-depth information, and most importantly, a link to where you can report this either to authorities in Florida, or if you're not in Florida, the Atlantic Gulf Rapid Reef Assessment folks have a website, and if it's seen anywhere in the Caribbean, you can report there. If you have questions as to whether you're seeing a native species or one of these invasives take a picture, report it, and if it's not the culprit, then they'll inform you. So again, it's a heads up more than anything else, and it's just something we need to be aware of as we, continue our diving activities.
Yeah. Well, you got to put it up. I mean, I wasn't aware of this. So it's now going to be on my radar. I can't pronounce any of those coral names, by the way. Thank God we got Alex Brilski to educate us on that. But
I know.
I can use pictures.
Here.
It's pulse coral. Actually, one of the things that as we cycle through this next 2 more slides, these are the two culprits. This is the native species, but this next one coming up, this is Palithoa. You probably see this a lot, and many divers and snorkelers assume this is just another yellow coral. It is not. It's a highly toxic spatial competitor. It's actually not a coral. It's more or less a colonial anemone. So it's one of the reasons I think that we want to be, more aware of what's on the sea bottom. We tend to pay a lot of attention to all the pretty fish, but the things that occupy the sea bottom that aren't necessarily obvious, like corals and sponges, are important members of the community. And the more familiar we are with them, the more we can identify when something kind of looks out of kilter. So,
right. Okay. And then
that's
Carlos from Brazil is with us, and I think he had a question or comment.
Venezuela.
Venezuela. All right. Carlos, what do you think?
I would. Yes. I wrote an article about that to Dan Europe. So it's already published. I think it was last year, from exactly the same problem. And what I can tell you is that if you are a diver, do not touch the Eunomia, the coral. This is a soft coral and is easily to break. And the problem is that the reproduction is very fast, and the coral may be attached to your equipment. So you get out of the water and dive in another place. I'm sure you will contribute to the expansion of the coral of the Eunomia. So I'd invite all of you and the listener to go to Dan Europe and look for the article.
Yeah,
it's a very, very nice article.
Take the pictures, document it, send it to the proper authorities, but don't mess with it because you might make things worse.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it because it's easily break. You can break it easily.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the problem of these kind of soft corals.
Well, thanks for that, Carlos. All right, so Neil Watson has a comment or a question, maybe. I don't know. What is it, Neil?
Yeah, Alec, how fast does it seem to be spreading in Cuba and Puerto Rico?
Well, I believe in, correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos, but I think you've had it in Venezuela about 5 years or so?
We're not sure, but the problem maybe goes back to at least 10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
Okay.
And the problem is, everything with invader or alien species is that you try to find out where is the origin of the problem, and you will step in speculating about stories, all the stuff. But all I can tell you is that it is a coral that is used for aquariums, and the problem is that someone tried to harvest the coral in these waters, and then it spread. That was the origin of the problem. Although I can tell you, could be a speculation, because there are fisherman tales. So.
Yeah, I mean, that was similar for the lionfish. That was one of the rumors. Lionfish spread was through aquarianists and things like that, releasing the animals. So sounds like it could be the same with the squirrel. It's definitely something we got to monitor. And thanks for that, Alex. That's good stuff. Yeah.
The soft corals are real popular. I'm sorry, muted again.
No, you got it. We hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's they're very popular among aquarists because they undulate, they look very neat, And it's quite likely. But the other issue, of course, is ballast water, which is one of the reasons, one of the ways we think stony coral tissue loss disease has been distributed. And the point is also well made about the equipment, diving equipment. As you may be aware, that the Skittle D disease is thought also to be possibly spread that way. So, we need to be conscientious, rinse equipment, and do all we can and report anything that looks kind of suspicious.
There you go. Well, good stuff,
Thanks,
Alex.
thanks again.
And good job on the technical side, too. He did something new.
Now we're moving to something completely different, as they say on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. So Jeff Sincerapino.
Got
Rocky
it.
Hill. Yeah.
There you go.
First time. And I got his name
Yay.
right in months. And I'll screw it up before we're done, Jeff, but I'll let you.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. But we're going to get back to the DEMA show a little bit and talk about some of the special sessions and how you could be a part of those. Is that what you wrote about in the Scuba Diving Industry Magazine this month?
Yeah, I did. And first of all, I apologize for the voice, and if I cough a little bit, I wish that bug had stayed in Las Vegas and not come home with me, but it did. It followed me. A couple of years ago, when the show re-engaged in Vegas in 2021, I had heard a lot about people saying it wasn't going to be a good show, this and that and everything else. So I sent Tom Ingram a note, and Tom didn't know me. I was just a dive shop owner in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, and I shot him a note and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And I was like, okay, I'm never going to hear from him again. But within 5 minutes, I got a reply back from Tom saying, "Fine, let's talk when we're at the show." And I sat down for him for about half an hour, and we talked about the DEMA show. And I said, I hear a lot about DEMA show and what it was, and, back in the day and how great it was and that sort of stuff. And I said, I'm interested in what DEMA can be, not what it was, and what it can be and what it should be. And that's when he introduced me to volunteering for one of the committees. And excuse me. And I volunteered for the DEMA Retailer Engagement Committee. And I write about that in the article. And you can read about what it's all about. But essentially, it really is the committee that selects all the DEMA presentations at the show. And we work for about a 3-month concerted period where we get in all these submissions, evaluate them, and then select the 25 that are going to be presented at the show. And there's about 150 people or 150 submissions. So it's a very competitive environment for selecting it. And you are actually now driving what DEMA will be. What are the presentations? Who are you going to hear from? What do people want to see? And this committee is made up of dive retailers. And it's such a great experience to meet people from all over with different perspectives on, the dive industry and what's important for retailers, and help drive what the show can be. And one of the things that the committee is really trying to focus on is getting more peer-to-peer presentations. So how can we get frontline dive retailers talking at the show and presenting in these sessions? And I've had the opportunity to do two presentations, one last year and one this year. And I got to tell you, it is the most rewarding, one of the most rewarding things you can do is not only attend the show, but be providing direction to the show and participation in a different level. So it's easy to volunteer. We're always welcoming new members to the Retailer Engagement Committee. And we just hope that people out there recognize that you can be a part of making the DEMA show, what you want it to be in the future.
No question about it. I participated in my first seminar at DEMA in Vegas this past year. As a first time ever. And I was helping out Megan Heaney-Greer and Liz Parkinson talking about Hollywood stunt woman diving. And I was just like a kid in a candy store. I couldn't believe they actually asked me to help them out, but I just help MC, things like that. But I was, I'm always opening the show. I got to work. I don't have time to attend to the seminars. But I was like, gosh, this is really this is a blast. So hopefully we'll continue to do that and get a lot out of it.
Sorry, Greg, on Jeff's article, there's a QR code. If you look at the digital version, it's just a link, but you can click and it goes directly to DEMA's sign up sheet for all the committees, because there's about half a dozen committees that compose 30 or 40 people that actually make a lot of the decisions and make stuff happen at the show and throughout the year. So if you're hearing my voice or you're watching our show, go take a look at Jeff's article. It's fantastic. Let's see, Jeff, you were on page 30 this month.
Yeah. The Retailer Engagement Committee is one. I've also been on the show committee. That helps drive kind of how we position the show, taglines, things like that. So just so much you can do if you want to be a part of the industry at a different level by supporting DEMA.
Absolutely. Good stuff, as always, Jeff. Now, up next, we have Gil Ziemer. And I pronounced his name wrong. It's Gil Ziemer.
Right.
But I wanted to say it because it's only fair that if I screw up Jeff every week or every month, that I have to do you too, Gil. I can't get 100%. You know me, right?
Right. Well, I've averages. Yeah.
Right. All right. So this month in Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, you wrote an article called "My First Time: Making It Memorable and Giving Thanks." I hope we're talking about our first time diving. Otherwise, this could get parental, notification on the video or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, we are talking about my first time diving.
Okay, sure.
But as an advertising man for decades, I know the power of a strong headline to rope in readers. So you have to make it provocative. So this story was about my first time diving, but it was really about my first two times. And it was, let me explain. Every diver, every person, every writer has an origin story, and this was mine. It was my story about a resort course in Grand Cayman in 1981 and a certification course in a reservoir in Granbury, Texas, 4 years later. And they couldn't have been more different. One was 80 degrees. And let me show what I was wearing for both of these. You see this picture?
Yes.
So on the left, I'm wearing a t-shirt and swim trunks and an orange horse collar BC, and the water was 80. The Viz was like 200 feet, the best I'd ever seen. Jeff Bosniak could see much better in Antarctica, but this was warm water. And on the right, I was in a full wetsuit, Farmer John, gloves, neoprene cap, and the water was 60, and the Viz was 2 to 10 feet. It was the best of times, the worst of times, but they were both so different. They were still enjoyable to me, and they still gave me the sense that this was a sport I could enjoy for life. And so that's why I wrote about each experience. I'm sure for many of you, you had your resort course and your certification course within hours or days of each other, but mine were 1,400 miles apart, 4 years apart. And also in the article, I wanted to give retailers, dive shops, liveaboards, etc., and resorts, the idea that they should give thanks to the divers who they certify. And I gave 7 ways to do this. One was taking underwater photos or videos of them on their first dives and then sending those to them or posting them on social media to commemorate it. 2 was to mailing them a handwritten thank you note instead of email. It's much more impactful when you get something in the mail, and it's easy to do. Just the cost of a stamp and some paper. 3, sending emails on the anniversaries of their certifications. 4, inviting them to exclusive sales events just for them as new divers. It'll make them feel even more special. 5, reaching out to them about seminars and webinars of upcoming trips that you're having through your dive shop. 6, informing them about new gear and new technology. And 7, letting them know that you're their virtual dive buddy for decades in the future. And all of these first times, all of these things around a diver's first time will help them have even better memories of it long term. So that's what the article is about. And then I'd also like to talk just for a minute about Blue Friday, which was the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I've got reports coming in still from friends of mine who went diving on the Big Island of Hawaii, both the Channel Islands and San Diego and other places in California for my dive club. They're still getting back to me. Roatan, Honduras, Coral Sea in Australia with Terry Klein and his wife, and Costa Maya, Mexico. So I'll write an article about that next year or next fall to recap what we did this year and to try to extend it even more in 2025. Willie, how was it received in at DEMA?
It was great. There's a lot of different moving parts to trying to create something like that. And I think the biggest challenge is getting the word out.
Yeah.
So I think, we've started that process this year. And I think I see it as an ongoing process. Every year we're going to push it, and I think it makes perfect sense. I love it. I think it was your buddy that was on our podcast last month, Ken.
Ken Carter.
Yeah, that you guys came up with this brainchild, and I think it has a lot of travel. I'd love to see clubs get involved. In fact, we had several clubs come by and see us at the DEMA show, which I didn't even think there's clubs left, and there are some of them pretty big out there. So,
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of people that could certainly get behind this effort, and I really appreciate that, Gil, and appreciate your context of ideas. One last little comment, not to belabor it, but the handwritten note. Stuart and Michelle Cove really built their business on that one, on basically what Catherine said, a customer of one.
Right.
They used to have a policy that any group that came down, they would send a handwritten note, thank you note to the group leaders and the dive shops after every group. And I used to remember going down, I did a lot of work with them over the past, and they'd have giant bundles of postcards that were going out because it might be they would do that also for some of their best customers. And it was back in the really 90s and 2000s that they did all this. And built it to a mega business it is today. It's just that personal one-on-one instruction. I know that's what Neil, your business in Bimini, survived on, strived for, and was famous for.
Yeah.
Well, we actually had a postcard that we sent out that was addressed from me to the client and requested, grading of the different categories of the trip, the hotel, the restaurant, the dive boats, the diving, and I assured every one of these people that it personally came back to me, I would review it, and then I'd send up follow-up letters, thanking them for reaching out.
That's great.
Absolutely. And by the way, Neil, we got to go back to the first time thing, because there's a thing that Neil has told me over the years that he compares his first time to diving to what, Neil? What do you say about this to people that want something memorable? What do you say exactly?
Was I sober when we were talking about
No,
it?
of course not. You're talking about your first dive and your first experience, how they compare or something like that?
My first dive and my first sexual experience, the one thing that they had in common,
Yeah.
they were both great.
Okay, there you go.
That's close enough. So I'm going to set up Greg, our next author, Jeff Bozanek, and he's been so kind as to write. I dare say there's not been, and certainly not another publication in print, but probably not even a publication I've ever seen that has carried such detailed information on the rebreathing market. I'm fascinated by rebreathers. They've been around since even before scuba, which is really remarkable. But and it's only in the last decade that it's began to move into the mainstream. And so I kind of challenged Jeff. I said, can you write a multi-part series for us explaining to the industry, because since thousands of retailers, instructors, and dive liveaboards, and get our magazine, walk them through what the rebreather is all about, how the technical side of it works. If you're a resort, what do you need to plan for it? If you're a retailer, you're going to get into it. I love the fact that he is approaching this article and he's not holding back. He's not holding punches. He's telling you exactly, hey, you got to have this, you got to have this analyzer, and you got to put this money, and because it's better to know exactly what you're getting into than to get started on it and realize, oh shoot, I'm not totally ill prepared. So I'm going to turn that over to Jeff, but I want to thank you personally. It's the third part of, I think, a 4-part series you're working on. And if you have any interest in rebreathers, go back and start the first one. It's all linked in the digital article, the first 2 articles, as well as the third in our most recent issue, the November issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Jeff?
Willie, thank you for that. And it kind of segues into what I want to talk about, which is, why would you, as a resort owner or a liveaboard, want to have rebreather divers in your operation? And Willie, you've only been diving for a few years. You may not know this, But the reality is that people that come to resorts want to see new things. And well, that was a perfect segue. You who've been diving for what, 30 years, 40 years, working in the industry at multiple resorts, um, just said, God, I don't know much about rebreathers and I'm interested in them. And when you have other customers that are coming to your operation and they're bringing new technology or they're bringing things that are interesting to your other clients, that's one reason why you might want to be able to offer a rebreather program right there, is it offers an avenue to attract um, not just a population of people that are fringe lunatics, if you want to call them that, but you're providing something else of interest to your standard clients or your bread and butter clients that is making your operation more interesting to them personally, not because of anything that you're doing, but because of the kind of people that you're attracting. And someone once said, if you want to meet interesting people, travel. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. If we go back to the basics, as a resort operator or as a liveaboard operator, um, competition is getting more stiff now than it used to be. 20 years ago, if you were running an operation in um, Cipadan or you're running an operation in the Red Sea, chances are you were one of 6 or 12 people in the entire region that supported diving. That's not true anymore. The reality is almost any place you go, the competition has significantly increased in the last decade.
Yeah, and that's so evident, like in the Red Sea. I mean,
Red Sea is the
you
classic
know,
example.
what, it's 600 dive boats based out of Sharm el-Sheikh or something like that? Just
Crazy,
And
yeah.
my
astronomical
first time
numbers.
diving there in 1989, there were exactly 2.
Oh my gosh. No, and this was like 8 years ago since I was there, or 6 years ago. So who knows how many there are now?
Well, and you want some means of being able to set yourselves apart, and offering support to a specialty segment of the market is one way of bringing people in. Now, the reality is that's a pretty small segment. The number of people that are diving rebreathers right now are a small fraction of those diving open circuit. But I, as a resort leader, as a tour leader, when I'm taking groups to resorts, one of the very first things I ask is, do you support rebreathers? And it's not because my groups are primarily rebreather divers. The last time I took a group out, I had 14 people in the group, and 3 of them were diving rebreathers. It was a small part of my group, but I had to pick a place, a location that would support everybody that I wanted to bring. And so the fact that an operation would not support or could not support rebreathers, they got crossed off my list immediately as a potential destination. And so not only did they lose the 3 rebreather divers that were in that group, but they lost the other um, 11 or 12 people that were on that trip as well.
And that's a really good point, actually. Very good point.
And so it's not just the rebreather divers that you're catering to when you offer support in that. The other thing is that when you provide support in rebreather divers, you are simultaneously in many ways providing support to other groups of divers that are not necessarily mainstream. That might include the people that are doing nitrox diving. It might include photographers that are using rebreathers not as a tool to be diving rebreathers particularly, but as a tool to impact and improve their photography. And so you might lose a photography group because you don't provide rebreather support for the few people in the group that are diving rebreathers, but using them primarily for photographic purposes.
So Jeff, if a resort out there or a liveaboard or any destination, wants somebody to help them with that process, I assume you have that kind of service you can lend to them because there's
Oh,
really very few resources. I mean, where do you go to? Who do you turn to? How do you say, hey, we're interested in maybe getting involved in this, but what's our minimum investment and what do we need? And I mean, you do that kind of thing, don't you?
I do. I'm happy to help with that kind of stuff on a consulting basis. And quite frankly, locally, there are probably instructors in the area that could also help the operation or help you as a resort owner. Not to talk myself out of getting business. I'm happy to help. But the bottom line is you don't always have to turn to somebody that is may be located half the planet away.
The other side of the coin, you're turning to the guy that wrote the book, literally.
That's true. Connect on Zoom, you're good to go. Doesn't matter where you are on the planet.
I want to mention one other thing too, is that there is another advantage to bringing rebreather divers in your location. They see things sometimes that you may not have seen. And so, as an example, when I went to Malaysia the first time, I was diving in an area where there are half a dozen resorts. We were going on dives that they take their clients to on a regular basis, day in and day out. In fact, one of the channels we were diving typically got dove 4 or 5 times each week by each group that was there. And I remember coming back one day and saying to Clement Lee, who owned one of these resorts and been in the business 25 years, you probably know him, Willie. And I said, God, I can't believe the hundreds of rays that I saw today in the channel. And he said to me, we don't have any rays here. I said, what do you mean you don't have any rays here? I saw hundreds. He says, I've been here 25 years. I've never seen a ray here. And so the next day I went to exactly the same location. I brought my camera this time because I didn't have it on the previous dive. So obviously, if there's no pictures, it didn't happen.
Right.
This time I went down, I took photographs of the rays, and I was just looking for a photograph of this to show you guys. And it's so far back in my Facebook feed, I can't find it anymore. But I came back to the surface and I showed him a picture, and I'm sitting on the bottom. There's a red Gorgonian sea fan on one side of me, and then up above me in the water column, we counted in the one picture, the one single picture, that one, 63 rays in silhouette.
Wow.
And
Obviously,
he had no
they're not
idea
a
that there
fan
were any at all
of
in
the
the area that
bubbles.
he'd lived 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't like the bubbles, but if you're on a rebreather, they're like, oh, hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Well, sometimes rebreather divers go and you dive the same locations, but you dive it a little bit differently. You dive around the corner, you dive a little bit deeper, you maybe go out, because rebreather divers tend to be explorers in many cases. And so they look around the fringes and underneath the rocks. And so you may find that you're able to provide more offering to your standard clients because of finds that your visiting guests with rebreathers make that open up new vistas or open up new opportunities for you that you don't even know that you have in your own backyard.
That's great. Thanks a million, Jeff. And I
stuff.
look forward to the fourth article in this series. But thanks
Coming
for being
soon.
on here.
Yes.
Great. So
Up
I'm
next.
gonna,
Yeah.
Greg, if you don't mind, I'm gonna set
Go.
up our next because Carlos is new. Carlos reached out to me a few months ago. He's written a book that is on a deeper understanding of learning to dive. I've read it. It's a fantastic, kind of like a follow up to So You're a Certified Diver Now what? But he is based out of Caracas, Venezuela, and there's some fantastic diving in the Southern Caribbean that our world doesn't know hardly anything about. Rarely do you hear of a group or a dive shop taking a group to any of these destinations. Last month, he wrote about San Andreas Island, and unfortunately wasn't able to make the podcast, but it's an island owned by Colombia, kind of off of Costa Rica, as I recall, on the Caribbean side, right, Carlos? More or less? Yeah. And then this month he wrote about another mystery. Yeah, I so great you titled it Mystery, because I did a lot of work in Bonaire for many years, and everybody would talk about this mysterious island called Margarita Island that was just so close but you just could almost touch it, but you can't really go there, kind of thing. And so I'm going to turn it over to Carlos. He's going to tell us about his series he's going to be doing for us, by the way, over the next few months, is continuing to write about these very, very unique places down there that are just completely off the beaten path.
Tell us about Margarita Island. Is that right next to Margaritaville?
Are you there?
There we
There
go.
you are.
Okay.
It's the margaritas. We'll blame the
Thank William
margaritas.
for allowing me to write for the magazine.
Yeah.
Second, I want to congratulate Jeff. We have a lot of mutual friends like John Clark. Well, congrats, Jeff.
Thank you very much. And in fact, I want to say I enjoyed diving in Venezuela when I was down there maybe a decade ago.
Yes, I know that you came, but I was out of the country. I traveled a lot, so I wasn't here when you came. So it's a shame. But well, as I say, we have a lot of mutual friends. One thing that I remember from early on is my love for sharing what I learned. And teaching and writing, whatever theme about diving, is a haven to me. I've been writing a lot, And I love storytelling, and really, really love storytelling. And we, as if we're trying to sell more dive spot, we need to understand that we need to not only sell the dive spot, but we need to sell the complete story. We need to sell about the people, about the food, about the history. That is why I structure all my writing. First, with a lot of history, what archaeology is doing in the site, and then um, go inside to the island as well. Um, but the mystery could be applied to all the Caribbean, because if we have a huge history in the Caribbean from 6,000 years ago up to the Second World War, and it is no matter where you go to the Caribbean, you always find something interesting, not only for diving but for the culture of the people there. And I know that Venezuela right now is not in the best spot in the political realm, but you can come to Margarita from Europe, because that right now is the natural market. Also, Latin America is a natural market for Margarita. But if you're coming from North America, what you can do, the best practice is get in touch with a travel agency or a dive center, and then they will take charge of everything for you, so you can spend a nice vacations here. So that's will be the best way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have any question. What I
Well,
can tell you is that we in the Archaeology Foundation of Caribbean, we are working heavily to uncover the past, and we have several projects, wrecks. We have digging inland, on the water. So it's very, very, very nice what we're doing here.
I don't doubt that the diving is spectacular, but of course the margaritas are another level. I'm just guessing. They
Does
have to
anybody
be.
else want a margarita right now?
Well, let me show you the site in Margarita is very shallow, so
Okay.
you will find wrecks from 5 meters up to 12, 15 meters.
Right.
But you can dive around the island up to 30 meters
Very
depth.
cool. Very cool.
So it's clear water. There is a lot of corals, coral reef, beautiful, and that is the perfect spot for novice.
Yeah. All right. Well,
That's the way
so
I look
so
out
you can go to
for training.
Margarita Island and explore the wrecks there, and when you're not diving, you get wrecked on margaritas. I mean, you kind of knock out both on this
Yeah,
particular.
that should, because Margarita is the center of the spot. You come there because the infrastructure, the tourism infrastructure is there. So then you go to the near islands, which is Cubagua and Coche, and in a boat, in a catamaran, 20 minutes, and then you go there and make the dive and come back to Margarita and explore Margarita as a cultural spot.
Hmm.
That's the thing. In all the Caribbean is the same. It's the same. You will find a lot of point when you can go diving and then explore the cultural food, all the stuff.
Love
So
it.
what I'm trying to say is that we need to try to, for the retailer part, is try to convey a storytelling for your dive spot, for your dive center, and it will be sell better. Uh, because people like stories. And same for a cave. If you go to a cave, why is the cave here? How long the cave are here? How they form? What it can do to contribute to the nature of the cave. So everything is the same. Do
Yeah.
and storytelling, it will sell better.
Another place to add to the
Great.
list on that
Yeah,
diving list.
Gil had a question, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Hi, Carlos. Welcome to the team.
Thank you
How
very
is the
much.
coral? What is it? Thank you. What is the health of the coral there? I know in parts of the Caribbean it's in recovery mode. How
Yes,
healthy is the coral?
yes. Well, the corals on islands near, not inland, in the islands are healthy, in a sense, because we have a lot of problems with fishery, for example, net fishery that broke the corals. We have the invader problem as well, but in a sense, it's better in the islands that what you find in the coast. So,
Excellent.
but
Thank you
but
so much.
it's in a good state right now. All of the problem is the water temperature rising.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
a great
Definitely.
problem for
Especially
all of
because it's
us.
so shallow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Buddy.
And that's
Okay.
worldwide.
Thank
But
you.
Margarita Island does have a ring to it. And just for that reason alone, I think it's going to move up a notch or two on my dive list. So good stuff, Carlos.
Thank you again,
thank,
Carlos.
thank you very much indeed.
So we got one more to wrap up with. Are we going to find out what's going on with Scuba Diving Industry Magazine now, Willie, or what?
Well, Patty wrote this great article, kind of like the show's over now, what next? But I really wanted to talk about some of these. She had some really poignant moments that occurred over those 4 days. And I've told her she has about an hour to speak. So, no, just kidding.
You're up, Patty.
So, Patty, go ahead and fill us in
No
what it was
pressure.
like at the show for you.
Well, I got to say, it was inspiring. Being our first trade show, and we're only at this point an 11-month-old magazine, to meet our readers up close and personal and face to face, and to hear from them, and the kind of response that we received was super confirming that we are doing right what is needed in the industry right now. We had we had quite a few brand new dive store owners that came up to add themselves to our subscriber list. And one of them in particular was a couple. It was Michael Connors and Rachel Scott. They just purchased, or I'm not sure how long ago it was, but within this year, purchased a store in Kentwood, Michigan called American Dive Zone. And they were both just so impressive. And so I asked, I said, how did you get into this? I mean, have you been in diving your whole life, or, what's your situation? They said, no, they'd both been in careers in New York City and just got tired of the rat race and decided that they were going to go back to Michael's hometown. And they sought out all the different dive stores in the area that were there, found somebody that wanted to sell. Michael had come from a background in small business acquisition. So, not sure all the detail on that. They may actually write an article for us regarding how they managed all that. But now they've got their blend of their business expertise mixed in with their diving and their passion expertise. And it was really inspiring to hear their perspective as brand new dive store owners. So from that side, that was really encouraging. We also met quite a few people that, like I said, were brand new dive store owners. And then we had many of our readers that were either owners or dive masters or instructors that came by to say that in their dive store that our magazine is required reading, like Willie mentioned before. So it's nice to hear, to know as writers, as I'm looking at all of your faces, what you're doing matters. And it's very much needed in the industry. And we got the confirmation by working in the booth and just having that opportunity to see. We also did a resource center where we had some of the writers were able to come and be a part of a panel discussion. And we were blown away. When we initially started or got ready to get going, the chairs were empty. And I think there's probably 70 chairs that were available in that area, the space that we were. By the time the writers sat down and Willie got to going with asking questions of them and they're passing the microphone, it was standing room only in the area. So very encouraging from a associate publisher and publisher standpoint, that we feel we're definitely filling a need, and it all goes to the writers. You guys are providing content that is very much being well received. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
Yeah, good stuff. And that's so much in line with what the DEMA show does too. We network, and all the writers, I think you guys all agree with me. You're not doing this to get filthy rich. You're doing it to pay it forward because the industry has been good to you, and you want to, help out the people in the future or the next generation of dive industry folks or dive shops, and kind of, help them out. Like the stuff you wish you knew when you first started, or someone took you under their
Yeah,
fin.
exactly.
Like for me, it was the dive god, Neil Watson, who's looking at me side angle right now, but that's fine.
He just got water. He's got water in his ear, maybe.
Something happened.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, Neil, back in the day when I first started Scuba Radio, he kind of befriended me, and I couldn't believe I was talking to this living diving legend at the time. And I've learned so much from Neil, and he kind of ingrained that, when you get in the industry for a few years, you want to pay it forward. You want to take those people under your fin and kind of bring them up. And that's kind of what you're doing with Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, Willie. So you and your crew are doing great work.
Well, thank you. And thank you to our editor at large, Neil. I got to say, I'm really excited about next month. Al Hornsby has recently retired as the senior vice president over at Patty, and has reached out to us to ask if he could write a regular column for us every month.
Excellent.
So hopefully starting in December, if he can make it, it might be the January issue, he's going to start a whole series with us on really risk management for different entities within our industry. And he's going to delve within that, the anatomy of a lawsuit. What happens if you're sued, which unfortunately it's a part of our business. And even if you don't live in the United States and you have a dive shop in like Clement Lee, all the way in Indonesia, you can still be sued here in the United States.
Sure.
Which means that anytime you come here, you got a problem, or whatever assets you have your problem. So it's really a global article. We've got another great article by Gil about an expansion of his Blue Friday concept for operators. Jeff Sarensen-Pino has written a great article for retailers on the process of expanding your lines of equipment that you're offering, new manufacturers, and so on. So we've got some other really great stuff. Diveheart, the Jim, I can't remember his last name, but the guy that runs Diveheart Foundation.
Yep. Jim Elliott. They just got the platinum.
Jim Elliott, that's it. He is going to write this really great article on, we're going to write about it, but how the Christ statue came to be in Key Largo.
Well, they just got the
history.
Diving Community Champion Award. Platinum winner.
Yeah, he did. He won it at DEMA. And so we're really excited. December is our 12th issue, and we've got some really cool stuff planned. So thank you for everybody being here. We're kind of at our hour expiration point. Anybody else have any final thoughts or comments?
I see no hands.
Is he all?
Yeah. Well, I guess we just need to wrap it up then, Willie. Right?
Let's roll.
Yeah, level up. That's it. The podcast for Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. I am Greg the Dive Master. Check out Scuba Radio every Saturday, 3 to 5. Till next time, remember, it is always better down where it's wetter.
This has been Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Produced by Scuba Radio and the Klein Group. For more info, go to ScubaDivingIndustry.com.